Hello, this is Matt Plow. I'm going to give you a quick overview on how to do the thermal actuator assignment. One of the two parts is to create the V-shaped actuator. I also refer to it as a chevron type shape. Chevrons are oriented in a V shape, kind of like the chevrons on a military uniform. Anyway, you can see the basic Sandia structure here, which we're going to base our homework on. Consists of a 300 micron flexure on either side of a shuttle, along with some bond pads on either end. So this is 300 microns long from the edge of the bond pad connection to the shuttle, and then another 300 microns to the other edge. Now notice that this has got a slight angle, and if you read the paper, you'll see that L is 300. That's the distance from left to the center. With an offset of about 3.5 microns on the end, which corresponds to something like 2 to 3 degrees. Okay, so I'll show you how to draw that. And the other measurements here you don't need to follow, because you have to follow the MEMS Pro8 and MEMS design rules. So you're going to make your shuttle approximately 12 microns wide, okay, with a 3 micron poly 2 poly 1 via. So you'll have a poly 2 and a poly 1 bar connected with a poly 2 to poly 1 via. Okay, and so it's going to look kind of like an I-beam structure that we discussed earlier. Okay, that'll give it the stiffness it needs. It won't come out of plane so easily. It'll want to expand only in the horizontal direction, which will cause the whole thing to go up, since you have the slight angle there of approximately 2 to 3 degrees. Okay, so that's basically what it'll look like when you're done. I'm going to switch screens to the design rule, or the design edit package, so you should be able to see this on your screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is select just a basic rectangular shape. It's going to be a poly 1. Okay, we're going to make it 300 microns long and 12 microns wide. So we can go to a different snap. 3 micron steps are great to make a 12 micron wide bar, but it won't, and also 3 will give you the exact 300 length dimension. Okay, so if I go from here and drag it to 300, okay, and then I have to go down by 12. There's 3, 6, 9, 12. And then I let go. So I've got a poly 1 structure that's 12 microns wide and 300 microns long. Might be slightly too long. You can go ahead and use the selector tool. Alright, so we've got our poly 1. I'm going to make the poly 2 structure exactly the same. So you can either draw it and overlay the two, okay, or you can copy and paste this one and then change the layer. So I'm going to go ahead and do the copy and paste and change the layer, because then you can learn how to do that. So again, I select the structure, I go edit, copy, edit, paste, and you can also use Control C and Control V. Alright, there's our new structure. I make sure it's selected. Then I will go to edit, edit object. Then the edit object screen comes up. I'm going to change it from poly 1 to poly 2. Hit OK. And there's your poly 2 structure. Now I can go ahead and drag this and superimpose it on the poly 1. So now I've got poly 2, poly 1 right on top of each other. And I need to connect the two. So I'm going to have to make a structure that's about 3 microns wide and under 300 microns long. Right? We need at least a 4 micron space on either side of the poly 2 to poly 1 via. So I'm going to pick poly 1, poly 2 via. I'm going to go ahead and do a rectangular box. So I've just drawn a box that's 300 long and 3 microns wide. The width is okay, but I made it too long. I need to back off by at least 4 microns on each side. Now we can decide not to do that because the structure will overlay with your shuttle on one side and your bond pad on the other. Alright, but we're going to go ahead and make it shorter just to show you how to do that. So I'm going to click the selection tool. I come to the end here. So right here we're at 300. I'm doing steps of 3, another step of 3, another step of 3, and another step of 3. Okay, so it's about 288 microns long. Now I'm going to go ahead, go to a little bit finer grid, select one, and then that way I can easily move this and adjust it so it's well centered. Okay, and now we have our basic structure. So let's take a look at the 3D model of this. So we can go to 3D tools and do a view 3D model. Be able to see that. Okay, and here it is. If I go ahead and use the orbit tool, you can see from the end that it looks like an I-beam. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that. Okay, you can see the I-beam structure here, which is pretty cool. The other thing you can do is look at it from the top. There's not much to say there. We're going to go ahead and cross-section it. I think this is the cross-sectional tool. We're going to do a vertical cut. Hit OK, and you can see it there. So you have a nice I-beam structure. Now notice I'm a little bit off-centered. So it's always good to do this because we're going to copy and paste this to make the other legs of our V structure. So I'm going to have to move this over. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the 2D layout view. Alright, and zoom in on it a little bit. Okay, we're going to go ahead and select move it up. If we zoom in some more, we can actually see if we're centered or not. And there's different ways to zoom in. You can use a number plus sign as well. 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on that side. So I need to move it a half a micron down if I want to center it. The other thing I can do is make the I-beam a little bit wider. So I could select it, make it slightly wider, and that would make it nice and symmetric. We have 4 on either side now, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm making my poly 2, poly 1 structure a little bit wider. Okay, the other thing you could do is leave it at 4. Okay, which is the nominal size that you want to do for poly 2, poly 1 via, and adjust it by half a micron. Okay, doesn't really matter. So we're going to go ahead and go view home. If you do view home, it puts all your structures on one screen so you can see it all. And you see we have our nice system here. Now you can take this structure when you're done with it and merge it, right? Make all 3 of them into one unit, or you can just go ahead and leave it as separate units, which you might want to do if you want to do some more adjustments later. So I just selected all of them and I want to rotate it. So that's in the draw drop down menu. You can go draw, rotate, okay, or you can use Control R if you can remember that, and then you get the rotate select object screen. Now it defaults to 90 degrees. That's going to be too much. Let's go ahead and do 3 degrees, which is a reasonable rotation for one of these structures. And there you go. So it's rotated. Now later. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. And then I'm going to select this piece again. Whoops, I selected my... I'm going to move this up out of the way. So I'm going to select this piece by selecting all 3 layers. And I'm going to go edit, copy, edit, paste. And I can go ahead and move that other structure and try to line it up with the first one. Okay. So this is 100 microns. So you can guesstimate this to be somewhere in the order of 80 microns or so pitch. Okay, so if we go back to our drawing, say, okay, let's make it a bigger pitch. So that would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pitch. So let's leave it at 60. All right, now we've got one side of the flexors going, so we can select those 2 structures we just made. Okay, I just did that. Then we go edit, copy, edit, paste. Or again, you can use Control C and Control V. I'm going to go ahead and move it out of the way over here. Okay, let's go ahead and center this. So we have a problem, right? This angle isn't the wrong orientation. So you can take that and angle it to the other direction, or there's even an easier way to do it. You can do a flip horizontal. And now they're symmetric again. Flip horizontal. And I'm going to try to line it up with the tips of what's going to be hit with the shuttle. So we'll make the shuttle 20 microns wide, roughly. So the distance from here to here is 20 microns. So this has to connect up with my poly 2 and poly 1 on the shuttle. Okay, we can make that an I-beam structure again. So let's go ahead and do that. We got poly 1. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. Oops. Got to select the structure we want. I'm going to go ahead and do a 10 micron snap. So that's nicely done at 30 microns wide. We have a little bit of a gap here. Okay, so we might want to move these in slightly or make this a little bigger. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bigger. I'm going to go back down to a snap of 1. Okay, so now we have good overlap. I'm going to go ahead and put my copy this structure actually. Edit, copy, edit, paste, and then go edit, object, change it to poly what? Poly 2. Go ahead and overlap them. All right, now we've got a poly 2 and a poly 1 structure, and they're not combined. Okay, so we can go ahead and put an anchor in the middle. All right, so one way to do that is to create a new structure. Another way is to copy and paste the same structure we did before and make it, make it a little bit smaller by 4 microns per side. And there may be a tool to do that as well. I don't mind drawing it, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Take my poly 1, poly 2 via. Now we're flush. 1, 2. That's about 4 or 5 microns in, which is good enough. Alright, so we're going to maybe have some problems with these two connecting to each other, especially if this bounces back and forth. You can make your poly 1, poly 2 structure bigger, I believe. But we'll talk about that later. Anyway, you've got your shuttle now. You've got your two end pieces. Now you've got to make your bond pads. So there you need a poly 0. So I'm going to make one bond pad, and I'm just going to copy and paste it over to the other side. So we'll go ahead and do a snap at 10. Gonna go 2 more. So there's 100, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80, 90. Oops, that's only 90. Now it's 100. Now vertically, 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 110. Okay, let's do 120 by 120. So it's approximately centered. A little bit higher maybe. So that looks pretty reasonable. This is poly 0. We got to do a poly 1, poly 2, and have the two connected. So I'm just going to go ahead and create my poly 1 structure. My poly 1. Okay, it's probably a little bit too big. There is a way to do this in the command line so you get exactly the size you want by typing in the dimensions. We'll go ahead and do poly 2, make it the same. Actually, I can just copy and paste it again, so I'm going to do that. Edit, copy, edit, paste. Edit object, change it to poly 2. Then go ahead and overlap the two. And then we're going to go ahead and do a poly 1, poly 2 via. Make that slightly smaller. So let's go ahead and do a 3D model of this. Tools, 3D tools. Now this will include the two other structures coming into it. So I want to see how they hook up. And we'll talk about that and how to improve upon that. Let's see what we've created here. Doesn't look too bad. Go ahead and use the cross-sectional tool. So we'll do a vertical cut. Okay, they're the two flexors, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to see if I think I can click and drag this. So let's take a look what this looks like. So here's your poly 2 and your poly 1, and they're nicely linked together. Oh, but look what I forgot. This structure underneath. So I'm going to need to put an anchor in here, and I'm going to put it inside a little bit. Go ahead and go back to the layout. So I need to put in an anchor 1. Make that even smaller. Let's see what happens. Let's try this again. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do another 3D. So it's always good to work on your one structure, your bond pad structure. Once you get your bond pad right, then you can copy and paste it and use it in multiple places. Save you some time. But you know, you really need to do the step-by-step and do cross-sections along the way so you can see how you're building it and see where you've made mistakes. And as you can tell, even though I've done this several times before, I do forget. And for those of you who are new to the process, you too will have those kind of issues. Now you can see how the bond pad looks here. You can see it's a nice stair-step design. We're going to go ahead and use the cross-sectional tool here. I'm going to do a horizontal cut. We're going to look at it right here. I'm interested in this area here. So here's my flexure, and it's connecting over. A nice connection to the base plate, so you get a good electrical contact here. You do have a little bit of a step up and down at this point, okay, due to the topology. Okay, we could probably, narrow this a little bit, but I think it'll be okay. Okay, you can see we're missing some of the cross-sectional piece because we did a straight line here. It looks like it's connected pretty well to this bond pad. Okay, and if we move over to the left, and there's the connection here. We probably should look at that more closely, so let's go ahead into the 3D view. Let's go ahead and rebuild it. That's usually easier. Now let's take a look at this part of the structure closely. So we'll zoom in, we'll go use the orbit tool. Looks like it's connected pretty well. So look at how we did this. We connected the poly 2 to the poly 2, and then we dropped down and anchored it using the poly 2 poly 1 via. Okay, so that's pretty good. All right, so you get the basic idea. You got to make your bond pad, your two flexures, and your shuttle in between. Now you can do additional things on this assignment. You could put a structure here to see how much this moves if you want, and those sorts of things. So let me just go ahead real quick, use my selection tool, select this structure, edit copy, edit paste, and let's move it out of the way. Okay, and we can move it to this side. We'll go ahead and zoom in. Okay, it might be slightly off. No, I think the horizontal vertical is in alignment, so that's pretty good. This needs to probably move to the right some more. Okay, well, it looks like I'm off a little bit, but you get the idea. Okay, another approach is to build these two structures and the bond pad together, and then copy and paste it and flip it, and then it'll be very symmetric and it'll look much better. In fact, we could probably go ahead and do that. So let me see if I can do that. I select everything on the left. I'm going to go ahead and clear it. And I'm going to select everything on the right. And then go edit copy, edit paste, move it over out of the way. And then while it's still selected, go to draw, flip, horizontal, and we can line it up this way. Let's zoom in a bit. Okay, I think that's good. See if it lines up. Yep. So that's about as good as I'm going to get today, and that's pretty much it. So let me know if you have any questions.